Welcome, my name is Barney Reese. I'm the author of How Blessed You Are in God's Promises. We're on chapter 41. And this was, let me see what it was called again, just so I can give it to you. Sorry. Your Promotions, Part 3. We were dressed in fatigues, got our uniforms, got our cheap dress shoes, had to keep our boots shine, had to make our beds, fold our clothes. A certain degree was hollered and screamed at daily, thrown out of formation because I could not march or half step. I believe I was number 4 in line, but I wore a size 12 while everybody in front of me wore a small size shoe. So I had to half step everywhere. I still had not heard from my beautiful future wife. I was singled out by my instructor because I had some college. I was ridiculed about my deceased father. I was put on patio duty so every night. I would go out with a canteen of water and brush and clean up pigeon droppings. I remember it was every day the same thing from the instructor. You were in college? Was Daddy as dumb as you too? I went through this to the end. I ended up working in the kitchen. The people helped me to pass. The instructor that rode me the whole time threatened to hit me, and I smiled at him. We ended up sprinting the mile, got honor flight, and somehow graduated basic training. The instructor just left me alone. After that, because if I hadn't, I was fixing to go to my commander and tell them how I had rode me and talked about my father to the breaking point. I ended up graduating basic training, and I went to tech school to become an F-16 crew chief. I remember I had to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I had to hear this blue rope tell me how great it was. Then I would march to tech school. I had to study, but before this happened, I did guard duty for 2 weeks. Tech school was constantly learning how the jet worked, learning how to use CAMS, a computer program, after you finished maintenance. I think we changed one tire together, and it was for a C-130 plane. We was told how a great career it was. I do not remember hearing an F-16 run. I do not remember studying very hard to pass the class. After 2 weeks, we were asked if anybody wanted to go to nights. I raised my hand. I actually liked it better. I actually could focus. We did not have to march to school, and it was a smaller group than before. My mind could concentrate more, and it was more relaxed. We could go eat chow. We slept late if we wanted to. I even had my mom and brother bring me my 1987 Firebird to me, and some of my friends could leave the base. I will say this, all the people in Wichita Falls, Texas are not friendly to the people in the military. The women are standoffish, and the people are just rude. Sometimes almost a second class citizen. I ended up having my car brought in for a tune-up, and for some odd reason, I had a burnt valve at the tune-up. So I met a man that told me, a good mechanic that fixed my burnt valve. I still believe the guy who did my tune-up messed up my car, but I could not prove it, so I just had it done. I remember going to a strip club, and I was the saddest guy there. All the girls that were stripping reminded me of 2 women I missed. The most I was homesick, to say the least. I should look back now and laugh at the moment because, believe it or not, the strippers sensed it and was trying to ask what was wrong, which I told them. I later remember going home illegally, but we rented a Yugo, disconnected the speedometer, and me and 2 others drove home to see our families. If we got caught, we were about 100 aero miles out of our area where we were allowed to go. I was dropped off by my other friends, was dropped off too. When the time came for us to go back to Texas, my ride was late. However, they did show up, and I went to Texas, got back safely, and I graduated tech school. My grade was 3 points from a B. I ended up getting my car fixed. I ended up driving home, and I went home to Meridian, Mississippi to see my future wife and to see my family. I was excited. The 7-hour drive seemed like nothing, even though I had my car go dead while driving 60 miles or faster on the highway, and driving through some of the highway where they was working on the road was tricky to say the least. The reason my car went dead was because of a hairline crack in the distributor cap, by the way. I found it out later. I was ordered to go to Avalon, but I would be an F-16 crew chief, and I had my name on the side of the jet. I would take my future wife with me. It was a funny thing how things changed. I never saw my fiancée to the end. We went out, and I remember her telling me about the hungry heifer. And I also remember her telling me, never look back, only forward. I ended up hanging out with my best friend and going out with her, but at the end, they would say goodbye to me because I was leaving. I ended up seeing my karate instructor for the last time, and David Carl wishing me the best. I ended up saying goodbye to my mom, brother, and sisters, and I remember saying goodbye to my Firebird for the last time. I would travel on a plane for the first time ever to Avalon, Italy. I would take a plane from Mississippi to Atlanta, and from Atlanta to Philadelphia Airport, to a base, to refuel, and then finally to Avalon base, roughly a 14-hour flight nonstop. I was met there. We would get ready to be settled in. I was put in a small dorm room with a staff sergeant who got in trouble for drinking. This was male and female in the dorm. I would get ready for work, and my first day I overslept. I told my boss I was sorry, and he said it was okay. Must have been jet lag. I would hear an F-18 and F-16 for the first time. I hadn't made it. I was in the Air Force. I would have the ability to see how beautiful it really was. Do you remember the time I told you that both the women I cared for about told me goodbye? I started working day shift. I had never seen this far away from my family, but I decided to make the best of it. I went in the Air Force at 22 years of age in March 1994, but since my birthday was on November 13th after tech school and sometimes between October, I would wake up and see the small mountain every day. I lived on the base, so I learned what a BX was. I knew where the commissary was. We had a Burger King, a chow hall, and a bowling alley. Shop, library, and gym too. I was home for the next 2 years. I needed to just settle in. The problem was I realized that the woman I had dated for 2 years was gone. I did not consider myself a great mechanic since I had to study to grasp maintenance to begin with. I was the new guy and lately didn't know anybody in the dorm. The only thing I had was my martial arts training, which I continued to do. At first, I had to get used to working all the time and accept this was just the way it was. After I got there, I was on days, exactly 8 weeks at a time. I had become a painter and a yard man. I had dug holes to just see someone come back behind and cover it back up a week later. I never knew how cold it was going to be either. That little mountain I saw every day was like a cold front constantly, and although it was warm, Now, when it got in the 30s or colder around the instant at night, it seemed I always worked mostly inside now. I was out in the elements. I was only on days for 2 weeks, and I was told to go to nights, which at the time, I did not realize I was slowly drifting into depression. I miss Lena, my now gone fiance. I miss Stephanie, the girl I always cared about. I miss my mom. I miss my sisters. I miss David Carr. I just missed home. I did not know, but my mind really was not there. It was somewhere else, and people were beginning to being scared to work around me. I, on the other hand, did not know anything was wrong with me. I just was homesick. That's all. I just went to work and read and slept as much as possible. I had no life, and I was only 23. I had made a friend. He was big in the gym, and his name was Justin Usick. I just started going to the gym to work out. We just enjoyed the day after work. I was still obsessed about my karate training, but nonetheless, we went to the gym and trained daily. We would even train before we went out on weekends. I really do not know how long I was depressed, but I kept working, never missed one day of work. I was always on time, even when I was on nights. I did not know about depression, and I was extremely homesick. I started reading from the library. I later started renting and watching porn or playing video games. I tried to read the Bible my uncle gave me, but could not only read a few pages. I went out, but nothing helped me. I slowly got more and more depressed. I still remember just seeing a cliff and just thinking of ending it all. I even took Italian classes, but could only say my name and where I was from. I must say that Italy has some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, but at the time I could not see that. I guess this went on for about a year or more. My depression only got worse and worse. I hid it as well, I thought, but in reality no one wanted to work around me, and I still believe I was the worst mechanic in my history. I thought that was thinking, what was I thinking joining the Air Force? In reality, I was not the worst mechanic, just homesick and heartbroken. I still thought about suicide, but I considered it a sin, and after all, I was a Christian. I thought I went like this for about 6 months to a year. I had made friends. The chow hall had closed, so I had to make my own food, and besides it tore my stomach up, so I brought my food at the commissary and made it. I was in the gym, and I was still training the martial arts. I went out every weekend. I was still depressed to the end. After I had taken all I could take, my heart was breaking beyond repair. I asked God to take this pain away or never let me wake up. I woke up the next morning, the pain was gone, and I had thought I had found salvation, but I would later learn that was not the case. I do not know how or the exact date, but after I was released from the depression, I started enjoying Italy. I had made friends. I was always trying to hit on the Italian women, because me and my friends saw just how many men these women slept with. We did not see a safe option at all. We would go in my Fiat to the lights to the sky to find the discotheque, and we would learn to like techno music. I would see old couples, ballroom dancers. I would see a dance floor with nothing but women on the floor dancing in techno, both women and men dancing in cages. I would have little bitty scary guys bump into me, and I would hit them with my shoulder, and they would spin like tops in the crowd, where my friends would hit them with his shoulder, and they would spin again.